But now, let's talk about something that maybe is even more important than funding, and that is resilience. Because startups will make you sometimes go nuts, sometimes go without sleeping at nights, sometimes it will make you cry, sometimes it will make you laugh, but all in all, you have to be resilient and actually strong enough to go and fight through it. And if there is anyone who knows how to survive it, then it's Deborah Choi.
Exactly, because she has built 6 ventures, she has raised VC funding, she's been named one of BusinessWeek's top 25 under 25 and BGA's Woman of the Year. She's here to drop some hard-earned wisdom on what resilience and perseverance really looks like in 2025. Get ready, because this one is a must-listen. And then a little sneak peek, after this one, we're going to have a short lunch break, I think.
Yeah.
Perhaps, maybe a short one. But anyway, now let's welcome to the stage Deborah.
Deborah, please. Woo! Woo!
Thank you. Hi there. Oops. There we go. Hi. My name is Deborah Choi, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. Over the past 20 years, I've been pretty busy building companies. As mentioned, 6 ventures across multiple industries. Some big wins, and plenty of losses. I've been named a top 25 under 25, and one of the less than 0.5% of Black women in Europe to raise venture funding. I've sold businesses, led teams across international markets, and my work has been featured in publications such as TechCrunch, Sifted, and Fast Company. Despite all of these amazing experiences, and this is what I want to talk about today, the first time I truly felt like a founder wasn't in building my first company. It was when everything started collapsing. So we spend our entire founder journey trying to gain control, right? Through planned funding rounds, careful market timing, fast or slow team growth. We act as if we're the main character, directing our own story. But the truth is, control is an illusion. Your success as a founder has very little to do with the highlight reel. It's about what happens when things don't go your way. There we go. So I mentioned losses earlier. There have been many in my journey. The deal that was supposed to go through didn't. The co-founder that I trusted left. The market I built for literally disappeared overnight. I've had to wind down businesses, let go of incredible teams, and take myself off payroll more times than I can count. But none of these experiences were part of the plan, and many were well outside of my control, much like the sea. So how do you actually navigate as a founder? If control is an illusion, what's left? And what's left is exactly what you do next. Over the years, I've learned that the most resilient founders don't just push through. They learn how to navigate. They develop tools that help them stay steady, even in the middle of a storm. And today, I'd like to share 4 of those tools with you. These mark the difference between founders who drown in uncertainty and those who adapt and potentially thrive. And let's call them, because I do like the sea, the anchor, the lighthouse, the rudder, and the team. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the anchor, which is about ultimately knowing what truly grounds you. A startup is not a survival game, it's a clarity game. If you don't know what keeps you grounded, you'll be pulled in every direction. Early in my journey, I made this mistake. I was young and chasing validation with my second company, a media business. We'd built an advertising model that was unique at the time, powered by evergreen content that was attractive to advertisers on day one, as well as day 365. And others took notice. We received our first term sheet to sell the company 4 weeks in. But when things started falling apart, I had no anchor, just a desperate attempt to keep afloat. The storm in this case was a vision misalignment with my co-founder. We were at odds on whether we wanted to sell the company or not, which ultimately resulted, roughly 12 months later, in my share buyout and exit. The lesson here is to define what truly matters in your business well before the storm. Next is a lighthouse. And the question here is, who guides you when you can't see the path? Every founder has blind spots. And when the storm hits, we all need a signal guiding us forward. For me, it's been mentors, coaches, as well as exceptional colleagues. I'll give you an example. My third company, a marketing agency, over the course of 5 years, we scaled tremendously in a really interesting niche to work with venture-backed Series A and up startups that were coming from Asia, Tel Aviv, Europe, South America, looking to launch and really grow their businesses specifically in New York City. What a niche, right? We were, towards the end, generating six-figure monthly run rates and growing rapidly. But this is not where we began. Where we began was, I was first a consultant. I reached out to my friends. I was living in New York City at the time. And I said, hey, I know a thing or two about marketing. Do you need any help? And from one client to the next, I built first a consultancy, then an agency, working with founders who are building in New York, like me, or in California. But then one day, my exceptional colleague pulled me aside and said, hey, Deb, everything is working well right now, but maybe we need to figure out a niche because I do think that we're going to get a lot more competition in our space in the short term, in the next couple of years. And that was brilliant advice, and he was right. Now there are, everywhere you turn in New York City, a digital marketing agency, a branding agency, a PR agency like we were, supporting American, East Coast, West Coast companies, consumer brands. So that decision was not handled overnight, but that advice took us in the direction that we needed to grow and to thrive in a highly competitive space. So knowing when to pivot can be hard, often because the changes that require you to change are subtle. In our case, everything was okay. It was just that on the horizon, there were things that were coming to change for us. So that means surrounding yourself with mentors, peers, and advisors who have the perspective you don't. Don't rely on willpower. Build a network that prevents you from crashing. Next, we have the rudder, which is about learning to pivot without losing your course. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your rudder. One of my biggest failures, mistakes, learnings as a founder wasn't about a lack of resilience. It was my refusal to change course when it was necessary. I kept telling myself at the time, we just need to push harder. But the truth was, we just actually needed to pivot. Resilience is not about brute force. It's about small, smart course corrections, the kind that make the difference between sinking and surviving. I'll give you another example from my fourth company. I started in early 2019 a plant care startup. We were servicing primarily businesses across a few key cities in Europe and also the US with vetted plant experts or horticulturalists that would come to their office and take care of their plants on demand or subscription. And we were growing steadily across 2019 until spring of 2020 hit. And as you can imagine, the need for plant care in the office vanished overnight as we all tried to understand if we'd ever go back to the office. And I initially was so resistant to changing course here because I looked back at our numbers and I said, there's still got to be a way. Maybe there's a different market we need to look at. Maybe there's a different way we need to price things or work with our customers. But as a bootstrapped company, I knew that I ultimately had to look at what was not only the numbers, the past, but what was right in front of me, a market that had changed dramatically. Ultimately, what we decided to do was to stay in our space, but to pivot slightly into another area, which was plant selling. And I'll tell you a bit more about what happened after that. But ultimately, the lesson here for us was that the best founders are not just persistent. They have to know or learn when to adapt. So last but not least, the fourth tool is the crew, the people who keep you afloat. I used to think that resilience was just about how much I could personally take on. I was wrong. I had a moment when everything depended on me in this fourth company. Fundraising, operations, product, hiring, logistics, and honestly, I was drowning. So, to continue the story, we started in April of 2020 with the plant care startup switching over to plant sales. And zoom to August of 2020, the business was booming. We were selling plants like crazy across our home city, Berlin, but also we quickly expanded to ship and sell across all of Germany. And I was at the helm of a company that I had not intentionally planned to run, one that was heavy in operations, logistics, customer support, and warehousing. And I remember that summer telling a small circle of friends, because I was knee-deep, this deep in plants. I whispered to them, because I thought somehow the plant person would hear me, I think I hate plants. And they said, because they're my good friends, and they understood the situation at the time better than I did, Deborah, maybe you don't hate plants. Maybe there's something in the way that you've set up the business or the current situation that needs to change. And maybe that's something that you need to focus on and find a solution for instead. Very good friends. So, what did I do? I reached out to folks in the industry, others in the space, just to compare notes and see how everyone else was doing. We were all in it. Literally everyone was either, during the pandemic, making sourdough bread, right? Or buying plants and killing them quickly afterwards, but buying plants. And so we were all having a peak time in our markets, and we're really at our limits. One of those conversations continued. And take us from August of 2020 to December of that year. I decided mutually with another business in the space to join forces, to merge the businesses, I technically sold my company into theirs and joined as a shareholder and managing director of the joint entity. We then went on in 2021 to raise a great round, scale the company even more, build interesting technology into our product for our customers as well, and ultimately do more than I could have done alone. What did I finally realize there? If your company is entirely dependent on your personal resilience, it will eventually fail. The best founders aren't the toughest ones. They're the ones who build strong teams that make them stronger. Resilience is ultimately a team sport. If you try to hold the whole ship together alone, you will fail. So, who will you be when the storm is coming? Everyone in this room is a great founder when things are going well. That's easy. But the storm is coming. The deal you counted on may fall apart. The competitor you ignored might outpace you. The economy, as it does, will shift in ways you didn't expect. You will be tested. What will you do next? Ultimately, we cannot control the storms that come our way, but we can train our reflexes. We can set our anchors, follow our lighthouses, adjust the rudder, pivot, and strengthen our crews. And if you do that, if you build resilience into your mindset, your company, your leadership, then you won't just survive. Ultimately, you'll be the founder who thrives in the storm. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, so good, so good.
Thank you to Deborah.
Yes, fantastic. Really a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I was enjoying just watching at her,
Same.
looking at her just because of the confidence, the calm, and I thought, that I would like a friend like her to call when I feel like down, then I would like to call her like, Deborah,
Exactly.
it's all bad.
Exactly, and a team
So it
member
really
like
felt
her,
good, yeah.
for sure.
You
for
made
sure.
us feel good, like really good.